Hi everyone and welcome back to Pokemon Utrecht special event. I'm delighted to be here with a good friend of mine, Wojcik. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's nice to be here.
Yep, as everyone has seen, you had a bit of a spotlight on you already, but we want to just dive a little bit deeper into you as a player, of course, and just generally your thoughts of the current format and how it's going. You know, we're in a format right now where it's incredibly mature. As a control disruption player, this is typically somewhere you'd like to find yourself in?
I think it's like kind of double-sided. It's nice to have like a lot of data. It's also, I feel like in this format, it's quite predictable, which are like the top 5 decks. You really don't see besides like 5 or 6 decks, you don't see too many different decks. So that makes it somewhat easy to prepare. But in the same time, if you're playing something that's anti-meta, and you've already kind of shown what your anti-meta strategy is, going into the next tournament, all the other decks also adapt to you. So you kind of have to go step by step, tournament by tournament, and kind of either find the right deck for the right time or find something new.
No, exactly that. And we've seen that through your evolution of decks that we've seen this season so far. You know, we've had a lot of the control decks in some of the earlier tournaments. And then going into more recently, that special package of the Dream Ball, Gengars. What kind of brought you to that kind of package? Is it as you saw the meta kind of evolve and adapt? Is that how you saw different cards finding itself into a deck you would play?
Yeah. I kind of started with like a pure counter box with the Eveltal and kind of this Ice Cube or Flying Pikachu package, which works really well if the other meta decks aren't prepared for it. But it can also be a bit predictable. It doesn't have any inherent power behind it. All of the cards are only good because they work against certain meta decks. So I also felt like it was kind of good to play a more proactive or like a more standard strategy against something, your own strong game plan, by either playing the Gengar with Mewtwo Union, or in the last event I played Peonia with Dream Ball to get the Dusknoir into play. That's a bit more like generally strong.
Yeah, and it's incredible to see the kind of innovation you typically go into when you've shown a number of the decks at the tournaments that you haven't been able to attend. How about now that we've got a format that's soon to be sort of refreshed with the rotation and going into the Scarlet and Violet sets? We have the massive EUIC coming up next month as well. How does one like yourself, again, thinking about that control disruption perspective, how would you consider maybe going into that tournament?
Yeah, it's obviously, you know, a pretty big upheaval of the meta. Everything changes. A lot of cards go out of the format. Of course, we'll still kind of have one of the more, I guess, annoying cards to deal with. Sableye is still going to be around and still going to be strong. We also lose Scoop-Up-Net, which I think is pretty massive, because it does make strategies that resolve around Sableye kind of... it's way harder to catch up on how many cards you have in the Lost Zone. So maybe Sableye will be a bit slower, so maybe that will change things. It also makes certain trapping strategies a bit more viable, because right now you can't really trap anything with like the block Snorlax, because with Scoop-Up-Net they can just take their target out of play. So maybe that will be interesting. And we are getting also the new EXs in Scarlet and Violet. Some of them are interesting. I also think it's interesting that unlike the V-Stars or the V-Maxes, EXs are actually stage 1s. So they work with the Zoroark that can use the transformation ability, and which is a card I've played in the control deck previously as well. It's very flexible, very adaptable to a matchup, so that's usually quite nice with a reactive disruption deck. So the fact that it works with cards like Spidolp EX and some others, Banette, it's kind of, I feel like there's definitely some potential there that wasn't there with VMAXs and Feast.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of hidden gems there that are coming out and potentially could be uncovered as we go into hopefully the new format in due course as well. Speaking sort of off camera, we know for a fact that you typically like to see other tournaments as well to kind of build into that metagame. We'll use that data. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how we can adapt into that. But just for now, we'll go straight back to the casters and we'll bring you some more Sander interview shortly.